Hello, everyone. Welcome to Geek Tank, where everything is a matter of geek. We're your hosts. What are you doing?
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Okay.
What do I
This
do?
is Kay.
It's
He
been
doesn't
forever
know what to do with his hands.
Since I did an episode, it feels like.
So
Yeah,
do you
that's
just
right.
put your hand?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like,
So without a handheld mic, he has no clue what he's doing.
Do you want this one?
no. I'm
Double
already,
mic it. Double mic
I'm
it.
already
Do it.
committed
Double.
to this lapel mic.
Clearly.
Okay, you're committed, and your hands are just gonna be wandering aimlessly throughout the entire episode.
Yes, it is.
Don't be grabbing my swamp butt.
Twiddle your thumbs while you're at it.
I'm gonna pretend like I'm playing a fighting game or something like that.
The whole time.
Well,
the
if
whole
you were
way
if
through.
you were a real fighting game player, you'd be pretending you were playing with a stick. But okay,
No,
no,
people play with pads now.
I really want to play Mortal Kombat.
The new one is actually pretty
New
good, I
one?
heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who has a gaming system?
I do.
Bring it. Let's
Okay.
get it. Let's play it on the projector. I'm not sure how we're gonna hook it up, but let's do it.
See, this
We'll
is
figure it
this is
out.
great
This is-
intro right there to the Massimo Art Gallery that we are recording at.
that's right.
We
Coming
do
soon, a
innovating
fighting
things, yeah.
game tournament and an art
Oh,
gallery.
that's a really good idea. We should
That
do
is
it.
actually.
That is a really good idea.
And Mo didn't come up with it.
Exactly.
High five.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on my shirt.
So,
So-
as you know,
We're your hosts. I'm Zia. As I said, this is Kay, who doesn't know what he's doing
we
with
have
his
our
hands.
guest host.
Introduce yourself.
You introduced Kay. I thought you were gonna introduce me too.
Oh, well, he doesn't know what he's doing today.
yeah.
so.
Like, what's happening right now?
This is Shireen. She is one of the owners of Massimo Gallery. So we're sitting here chilling with her, and now we have this fighting game tournament
She's
idea.
gonna just be like one of the owners. Like she's also one of the artists too. you
And
know?
one of the okay.
Guys,
Well,
we can
I
keep that
felt
part
like
under wraps.
I
Why?
felt like owner kind of trumps that, but yes, you can't see it in the shot right now, I don't think. But she has art hanging in the gallery.
Yeah.
Hashtag art.
Hashtag art. Hashtag
Support
artist.
your local artists.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about today?
Source material. Good
Source
adaptations
material.
and bad adaptations. I mean, we're coming right off the heels of the series finale of Game of Thrones.
Garbage.
That's right. Yeah.
It
yeah.
was.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I even shaved my beard, because my watch has ended.
Yeah, he.
Finally,
Yeah.
the Night's Watch has ended.
I mean, you should have kept it a little longer so he could have crushed up Cheetos and put it in your beard, and you
So I
could have
could
been
be Tormund.
Tormund.
Yeah.
And
Should
then
have
I,
done it. Should have done it.
and then I could have gotten my wig, and I could have been Jon Snow.
I could have had the mop head and could have been Daenerys.
That's right.
All right then. And
Daenerys
I'm
with a
gonna
beard.
stay Shireen. Like,
Well, you could be Arya.
she is a badass. But I'm upset that she didn't use her powers the entire time. Like, she
'Cause,
just stopped using them.
The writers forgot about it.
Yeah, they forgot about a
writers
lot
were-
of things.
Yeah.
They
They,
forgot.
they forgot about it. But
It
we're
doesn't matter.
Subver-
Like,
subversion.
she should have used her powers again at some point.
because they forgot about it. You
More
can't-
like they just didn't give a fuck.
Someone casted a spell in that world, and they just forgot about a lot of things.
Apparently so.
Yeah. So that's
Like
great
how to
way.
write.
Yeah. So there you go. So we're gonna be discussing Game of Thrones. We're gonna be discussing a lot of things like of different source materials.
comic book
Yeah,
movies
yeah.
and whatnot. But I mean, we're already on Game of Thrones, so why don't we talk about this right now? Why don't we go into why this is a bad adaptation of its source material? So, has anyone besides me read the books?
No.
I know
Which-
of the books and I know of certain things. Like I said, I read Cliff Notes, Wikipedia
Oh.
articles.
Oh, right. So you're like that kid that in school that just took advantage of Spark Notes and all that
Yeah,
shit to write your
yeah.
essay.
Didn't actually ever read it.
No,
Yeah.
I just like because Game of Thrones has so many characters. There's so much it's a whole world in these books. There's so much stuff. I'll just pick and choose certain characters that I like, and I'll just read up all about it,
Yeah.
and then I'll see the differences between the books and the show.
Oh,
And
and you
it's
probably
like-
fall into that loop where it's like you're
Yeah.
reading one thing and you don't even finish
Yep.
the article, and then you click another thing, and then
Yep.
you don't know where the hell
It's
you
like,
are.
oh, Aegon, and then, oh, Rhaegar, oh, this. and it's
Aegon,
Oh,
Rhaegon.
the whole Targaryen family. It's like, oh, okay.
Going back thousands of years.
Yep. So, I mean, I would say the show was good when it was following the books.
Which I believe was up until season 4.
Season
Which,
4.
What book was the last book? Like, because he didn't finish them.
The last book that came out was A Dance with Dragons, and A Winds of Winter, or The Winds of Winter, is on its way.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the last one came out in 2011, which was around the same time the show started. So basically the show ran its entire course before he got another book out.
Yeah. And then even so, there was still a lot cut out, which I do understand. Certain things, when you adapt certain novelizations into movies or TV shows, sometimes you have to cut things out. But there was
Right,
a lot of
that's-
good things that got cut out from this
Right, and in any
show.
sense, you gotta pick and choose what you're
Yeah,
gonna cut out.
yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
cutting out major things. Like in
Yeah.
this whole last season, we all said it. It was
Yeah.
super rushed. The
Yeah,
whole thing was
everybody
rushed.
said it.
So, in that case, there's so much that they cut out. Like the last episode, they killed Daenerys off in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we
Spoiler.
all said it too. My bad. We all said it too.
We'll
I'm
put a
pretty sure
spoiler
everyone
warning
should
at
have
the
seen it
beginning.
already by now.
Yeah.
Everyone
With
that
the
cares.
1% that hasn't
Yeah.
already watched it. But we all said it. As soon as he killed her, we all started screaming and cheering, and we're like, all right, let's go home now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty much
I
it.
mean, I would say episode 3 of the final season was just kind of like where you're just like, I don't give a shit. And then like, it felt like this last season for Game of Thrones was just kind of like, hold my beer. Let's see how badly we can fuck this source, or this story up.
Well,
every
They
episode.
succeeded. They
Yeah.
succeeded.
Yeah.
So basically, the way I understand it with these last 2 seasons is that since they finally surpassed the books, George R. R. Martin basically just gave them like a very like bare bones idea of how it's supposed to end. So they had to supply everything else, all the
Yeah.
details, all the dialogue. But one thing, and then this is just speculation on my part, I feel like they changed a lot of things for the sake of subverting expectations. Like Arya killing the Night King. I mean, sure, it makes Arya a badass. I don't think that is what George R. R. Martin has in mind for her character, though.
Maybe
Yeah.
not, but can we discuss where she even came from?
You don't
because-
have to because ninja skills.
Apparently, she just like fell out of the
Look.
sky because
They didn't think Jon Snow was right for that moment. It just
in
didn't
this
feel
final
right.
season, there is a new magic called teleportation.
apparently,
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people teleport
like
to
I
a
really
lot
want to
of
know.
places.
Did she come out of the tree? Did she just fall out of the sky? Like, where did she come from?
I mean, I think off screen Goku might have trained her. She's in Dragon Ball Z. He's got the instant
So-
teleportation.
So
the way she just pops up.
yeah.
Like you just see him, and then all of a
Spirit
sudden she
bomb.
just pops up and like in frame,
Yeah.
like on the screen.
Yo, someone needs to make a cut where they just like they put the Dragon Ball sound effects where it's like, "Tsew!" and she's there and just like come to stab him.
Honestly, I feel like that's exactly how it happened.
yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
much.
And
Like-
it wasn't earned. I feel like it was just like you built, as that one meme video did it. They Walking Deaded it. They Walking Deaded it. Because like,
Well, I mean, it's not even just the meme video that's saying that. That's like the whole internet is saying they
Yeah.
Walking Dead at it.
I just wish that I would have known like how she got there. Show us how she ends up from that one room over there. Show me how she got there.
oh no, but they'll show you like how she escapes King's Landing.
Right, but like,
Very, very normally, like a very normal person.
but I just would really like to know how the hell did she get there?
They forgot.
Well, I have a better question. Why did she get to the room right before Cersei and then decide revenge isn't worth it? When her whole story, her whole life's mission throughout this
Was
whole
to kill Cersei. And Jon
yeah.
even asked her, "What are you doing here?"
Subversion.
I came to kill Cersei. But you didn't though.
Subversion.
Daenerys got to her first. No, she didn't. You got there. You could have killed her. You turned around at the last second.
Maybe she just didn't want to be killed by a rock too. That's not how her story was supposed to end. Like garbage.
Okay, but then how come the Hound didn't kill Cersei?
Right?
He just likes like, yeah, you're good to go.
You just
Don't
walk
worry.
right past me. We're good.
We're
Yeah.
good. You know, I just told this little girl that she shouldn't do revenge, or otherwise she's gonna end up like me. So maybe I should just finish her job for her. Like, nah, you good.
No, he's just like, no.
Clegane Bowl.
It's all about the Clegane Bowl. This is the main event.
Like straight up, it would have been funny as hell if like the Hound is like, oh yeah, you did that to Qyburn, I can do this to Cersei, same thing.
Yeah.
He
They
should
just do
have.
it as a competition thing.
I saw this one post. It would have been great to see Cersei die by childbirth, by giving birth to like
The next little shit.
like
of like an imp like Tyrion.
Yeah, like Tyrion.
Oh.
Because
like,
when he was born, the whole story is that he came out tangled in like his mother's intestines or something like that.
I would have liked that much better.
yeah, it would have been like befitting because like that's how she always hates. That's why she hates Tyrion.
Yeah, because even his father kind of blamed him for his mother's death. So it would have been fitting.
Yep.
Instead, no, they gave her this peaceful death that
And
it actually
fucked over Jamie.
Dude, they make you they shit all over Jamie. They try to give you sympathy for Cersei, who was the worst character throughout the whole series. And they do that also they can play up how bad Daenerys is supposed to be when they didn't earn it.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's the thing, right? The difference between the books and this show is that like they Walking Deaded it. They made sure like the subversion thing was just kind of like a shock thing. Oh, look, this is not what you're going to expect. Whereas in Game of Thrones, it's not like you're not going to expect it. It's more like these actions have consequences and that no one is like a main character in a sense. I mean, they're like...
Yeah, no, you're right. That is sort of the case because... it's funny. I saw a really good article on the storytelling styles between, what Hollywood typically does and what Game of Thrones is. And Game of Thrones is focused more on being a sociological tale, is what this article said, where it's basically about the world. There's certain things already at play in the world.
Yeah.
There are certain roles people have to play, meaning like you have a king, you have a lord, they have to do these certain functions. And then there's also their own personal psychology, and it's about how these things clash. The duties they have to perform versus what they want, their own personal desires, and how they have to make their internal realities match the external. And so in that sense, it's like when a character's internal world is back.
Hello.
So you were saying Game of Thrones
Saying
is
about
sociological,
the
right?
about the internal external world. So it's like when they're what's going on in their head is not when it's clashing with the world outside. That's usually when people die off.
And the thing is, right, the way George R.R. Martin has been writing the books is that no one is really safe and no one's really the main character, and like the story will still go on without these characters.
Yeah, kind of like the real world. Like, I mean, a character's death can have a major impact on the world, but it's not going to stop rolling because they died. In
comparison to the show, it was just kind of like, damn. It's like as it got on, like later on in the seasons, it's just like these characters got a plot armor,
Yeah.
Tyrion being one of the biggest ones and Arya plot armor.
Well, because starting with season 7, from what I understand, and definitely season 8, if certain characters died off, the story would have fallen apart. Like, they totally shifted gears. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't even true to how the story was told. And that's not even getting into character inconsistencies, like Tyrion all of a sudden going from the smartest man in Westeros to one of the dumbest.
Yeah.
Varys openly discussing treason, and the sneakiest character in the show.
Jon just constantly being McQueen.
Just like that. No, I don't think they gave anyone, like, I don't think they did any of the characters justice in this new season. Like, they really didn't. Like, I hated Jon's ending. Like, he's such a vital character that he dies, he comes back, and then what? Now he's just part of the wildlings? Like,
they just forgot that he had an important part to play for the God of Light.
So is that what we're just going to call this, like, the forgetful season, because they forgot Arya had these powers? We forgot, like...
They forgot that she's the rightful heir to the throne. Like, they bring that up in the final episode, like, oh, well, you're so-and-so, you're Aegon Targaryen, blah, blah,
but they forget about that
but
after
then right afterwards, it's like, hey, democracy, guys.
You see, it doesn't even make sense that he would be locked up like that when you consider the fact he's Aegon Targaryen, right? He is the rightful heir.
Right.
So she was the usurper.
Yeah.
He should have it should have been rightful for
Right, at that
he has
point,
the right
they
to
should have just switch their allegiance to.
Okay,
yeah, it's just wait, we should have been following him the whole time. He is the rightful heir. So wait, is it really such a big deal? She was trying to usurp his throne. So yeah, that's what you would do to his someone that's trying to take your power. You kill him. That's how it works in those
So
sort
we'll
of
say a
situations.
little bit more about this in our actual Game of Thrones review,
Right.
I feel like
season
we
8.
just did it enough justice because it
No,
was
no,
such a
no,
short season.
no. There's still a lot. There's still a lot. I still have a lot to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Best part
I-
of the
I
whole
do too,
episode
and-
or the whole season is Ghost coming back. That's it.
And getting
Pretty
his
much.
pets.
Yeah,
And getting his
pet.
pets.
Yeah.
At least
So-
they didn't forget that.
Right?
So-
And honestly, I don't think they forgot anything. I think they just rushed that shit, which is
Yeah.
why
yeah,
I
'cause
feel
they wanted to fuck off onto Star Wars.
yeah, which is why I feel like they deserve the criticism. But
Yeah, rightfully so.
I think everyone agrees. I'm like, we're all on the same page here.
See, yeah. So I'll reserve more comments about Game of Thrones in our actual Game of Thrones review.
since this isn't exclusively about Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
it's about source material.
Source material. So
And whether
this
or
is
not adaptations do it justice.
Yeah, so that's a very good example of a bad example of or bad adaptation of certain source material.
Yeah, at least in the later seasons,
Mhm.
it started off really strong.
Yeah.
But let's see some good examples. What do you have in mind for good examples?
I would say
Harry
I'll
Potter.
go. Yeah, Harry Potter.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never read the books. I've only watched maybe like 1 or 2 of the
You should
movies.
get up and leave this podcast at this moment in time.
He doesn't read.
He doesn't
I
read.
don't read. I read comic books.
I've read the first 4 books, first 4 Harry
Oh,
Potter
shit.
books.
Damn.
I was younger. I didn't really get too into Harry Potter, so I
Guys,
just
welcome
never
to Geek
continued.
Tank, where I'll be taking over. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Both of
Okay.
you, goodbye.
All right.
You guys can
let's
just
go.
Talk.
You
No,
have
I'm
the
just
floor
kidding.
now. You have the spot. You have the spotlight
That's
now.
all-
No,
It's
no,
all
I
you.
don't want the spotlight. Take it back. Take it back. Take it back.
Okay,
JK,
but you
didn't
are
read
the
all of
Harry
the
Potter
books?
fan. No, I
I
never
think-
watched all the movies either.
Okay, well, growing up, I come from a household of 4 girls, and
Yeah.
my 2 older sisters were like avid readers, so they read all of the books. So it was kind of just like passed on to me, and if I didn't read it, I would get yelled at. So like I had to read with them.
Okay.
But I'm glad that I did because the movies were like spot on. There were minor details here and there,
Yeah.
but nothing that anyone would have picked up or realized that was missing from the book unless you've read the book multiple times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they did a pretty good job with it. Like, I'm trying to think, and I'm about to call. There wasn't anything that like I can recall from the book that was missing from the movie.
Mhm.
And the movies weren't rushed. They took their time and
Yeah.
they played everything out the way it should have.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree from the books I read and the movies I saw that they were faithful as far as I could tell.
Time out.
Did
Did you not watch all the movies?
Nope. Haven't watched all the movies. Haven't watched
What is it? Like
every
7
whole
movies,
books.
right?
Huh?
8.
There's 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they
They
broke
split
the
the
7th
last
book
one
into
into
2.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Like again, I just never got into Harry Potter that much.
Yeah,
so
that's my
it's
thing.
like that.
Like, I don't have any hate against Harry Potter.
Wasn't
like,
this
it's-
you saying that like you weren't like you didn't grow up in that age?
No, I did. Like I started reading the books before the movies even came out. I just, as a kid, I was just never. I was always more into like more adult stuff, like darker stuff. Like I remember when I discovered anime, like the reason I liked it so much was because it was more adult. There was more combat. Sometimes there was like blood. I was like, oh, this is like cartoons for grown-ups, and I liked it.
You should have stuck with like your age group.
I'm
just messing. No, I don't know. It's just weird to me when someone says like, "Oh yeah, no, I wasn't really a big like Harry Potter fan." I just feel like we grew up with them. So for me,
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I also didn't care that much for Disney.
Okay.
There's a few that I can pick off the top of my head that like I really liked, which was Lion King, Aladdin, and
Harry Potter's not part of Disney though.
no, I know. I'm just
Oh,
saying like
like,
because
where are
I
we
put it
going?
in that same vein because it's
Okay.
sort of like targeted towards kids.
Right. So like the ones that we grew up with, you weren't really like a huge fan of,
right?
So to speak.
Hipster over here, yeah.
I was like more of a
He was a
superhero
hipster before
kid.
hipsters were the thing.
No, I wasn't a hipster because keep in mind the
just messing with you, man.
'90s animated Batman series, like everyone, that's critically acclaimed,
Yeah.
and I loved that.
Yeah.
It was just I like things with a darker tone.
Fair enough.
All right. But what are there any things like you may have wanted to see in the Harry Potter movies that were in the books but not in the movies?
No, I think they got everything. Even in the last 2 movies. I sped through the book because by that point I was just over it.
Yeah.
But they got pretty much everything in there.
That's good. I didn't like. Do you feel like? I know this was like big criticism with like the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, like how they stretched it out.
Yeah, I know the
That
Hobbit they
deserved
changed
its
big time.
criticism,
Yeah.
though.
So in comparison to like like the last movie was split into 2. In comparison to like the Hobbits being split into like how many movies? 3? Or 2?
Three.
Yeah,
I think
3.
it was 3 movies.
I think they did it justice by splitting it into 2. Had they kept it 1, it would have just been way too long and everyone would have just been over it.
Right.
And they would probably have to cut out certain things.
Right, so it would have been way too long but still rushed at the same time. So at that point you're just wasting my time. So I think they did it justice by splitting it into 2. The Hobbit should not have been 3.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the Hobbit is it's not even as long as the Harry Potter books, and you've got some. I think at least the 5th and 6th Harry Potter books are like what, close to 1,000 pages,
Yes, I
and
believe so.
they crammed it into what, a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, that's see, there you go. There's another example of good adaptation and bad
Versus
adaptation.
bad, yeah.
Whereas like The Hobbit, you could clearly tell like they stretched it out to 3 movies. Like, oh, let's do another Lord of the Rings trilogy and cash in on that money.
Yeah.
But they didn't really cash in like that. It didn't make that much money, did it?
Because a lot of people were criticizing it for the way it was shot too. Because like it had that soap opera effect.
Yeah.
In comparison to like most movies are shot in 24 frames. They shot The Hobbit in 48 frames per second.
I mean, I honestly, like, I knew that going in, but I didn't really see much of a difference, probably because I don't pay too much attention to it. I just thought the movie was just, I didn't get into it. I think we've talked about it before, if not on the show, then between ourselves, that neither one of us, I don't know about you, but we're not really, like, big on Lord of the Rings. Like, I don't dislike it, I just never got into it much.
Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, like, my family was big on it.
Yeah.
Like, so outside of my sisters, I have, on my mom's side, I have 47 first cousins. And we're all, yeah, that's, yeah.
That's a big number.
Arabs, they just like to reproduce.
What?
It's true. So, but like we all kind of like grew up together as like brothers and sisters. So there are things that we would do together, and going to see Lord of the Rings was one of those things that we all did together. So imagine just like a whole theater full of like all these Arabs, just like everyone yelling at each other, throwing popcorn and stuff. Our parents didn't raise us right. So that was something that I did get into, but by The Hobbit, I mean, we were all adults at that point, and we were like, we don't care for this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't care for it, and it really didn't grab anyone's attention like that.
Right.
So we all weren't. It wasn't worth our time.
That's my thing with like fantasy. This is why like I think a lot of people, even the mainstream audience, gravitated to Game of Thrones is how grounded it was. Like it felt very real. Like it was like a real world take on the fantasy genre. It didn't really have those typical fantasy tropes.
A lot of it,
to like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that.
It has the tropes. It just plays with them in a very different way. So it's under Martin's writing and his guidance, it subverted your expectations in a way that you could believe. Like you couldn't believe it when it happened, but you're like, oh, I can see why this happened. Yeah. So you're okay with it. Whereas when you look at this final season, it's just subverting your expectations for the sake of subverting them.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, like I've never been really a big fan of the fantasy genre. Yeah. Like I just like like certain things in fantasy, like King Arthur stories, like one of my favorite parts about like the fantasy genre. Yeah,
I'm similar, which is funny because I like games like Final Fantasy, which has fucking fantasy in the title. But for the most part, fantasy has to do something different for me to like it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just feels like the same old nonsense. I do like mythology, and King Arthur's stories fall under that.
Okay, so that's like more mythology, but not like fantasy.
Right. Like, even with Lord of the Rings, it's fantasy. That's the start of the modern fantasy genre because it's existed for a long time. I mean, mythology would technically still be fantasy. But with Lord of the Rings, even though it sort of reinvented it, it still feels to me like Beowulf and the other mythology it's inspired by.
Like for me, it's got to be like more like a medieval type. Like I love like knights and armor and all that kind of stuff. So if it's got that in it.
So this past like King Arthur, did you like it?
The Ridley Scott one, the one with Clive Owen and Keira Knightley, or
no? Who was it?
Oh, the Guy Ritchie one. Okay.
Yes. Now, based on your response here, is how I'm gonna like heavily criticize Guy Ritchie for Aladdin. So go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so certain things were cool, but then like just the way it was shot, it would have been cool. Like I like his storytelling type, whereas like King Arthur is just this like ragtag group of like the way they're gonna form the knights round and all that stuff, and King Arthur himself is just this is like this. It kind of had that Aladdin aspect to it. It's just like he's this slum kid, blah blah, always about the hustle and shit, and all of a sudden.
But then that's just a classic tale of the underdog, but with a King Arthur skin. So it's really nothing new. Still,
it's nothing new.
It's just a new take on King Arthur, which is like very
so
weird.
You just literally take King Arthur from not a street rat, a hood rat, because he's out here running games, and turn him into King Arthur.
And that's the thing with Guy Ritchie. He loves telling that story. Like he's
the typical underdog story.
And not even just like typical underdog story, like because like his take on Sherlock Holmes was like dope with Robert Downey Jr.
Right.
It's
there's
cool.
a lot of similarity between the two.
Yeah. And the thing is like he has this like quirky cast of characters that just randomly their story just become intertwined in the way they're told, like Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch being one of them, one of my favorite movies by Guy Ritchie. Like Brad Pitt does an amazing job in that movie.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's great. Movie night, do it.
We're just coming up with all the great movie night ideas now. Why did it take the podcast for us to get here, guys?
I don't know. Kay's the movie guy.
Yeah, man.
I've been asking for this.
God.
Now you just have to go back and rewatch this when it's all edited up.
So I didn't like. I didn't really like this version of King Arthur because I didn't have like that. It didn't have that true medieval scope to it for me.
But was it actually true to its source material, which is the King Arthur mythology?
One part of it.
So it's a bad adaptation.
It was just like because he just tried to redo it in a sense like if you want like a good King Arthur movie, I believe it's called Excalibur. It was a movie in the 80s. Great fucking like it's beat for beat like about King Arthur. And like the actual mythology, like how I think we discussed this in another episode.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like that's the thing is you have these classic tales. The movies need to be adapted to the tale.
Yeah.
You can put little twists here and there, but it still needs to be that story.
That's the thing. Like there's a core essence of like that character or like that story that you need to still translate. Whether if you're gonna adapt it to like a modern time.
Yeah.
Same thing like I think Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio and stuff. There's certain things that have to be that's core to that essential story that needs to be translated into film or whatever you're adapting it into.
And a good example, since we're on the mythology topic, is Troy.
Troy was...
It takes the Iliad and adapts it in such a way that it still captures the essential story, but it does it in a way that it's focused on humanity. Because if you've read the real Iliad, there's a lot of meddling by the gods.
He didn't read it. He didn't read it.
No. I know the
But you should know it because of
yeah.
school. You have to learn
it.
So there's a lot of meddling by the gods in human
like,
affairs.
Yeah, like the gods are favoring certain champions and stuff like that. They're helping them out.
But in Troy the movie, it's almost like certain people are either crazy or just using the idea of gods to their advantage for the purpose of making political maneuvers.
That's just regularly society today.
Yeah,
Right.
It is a very real take. You know, like
Yeah.
for example, spoiler, Troy's an old movie, but the way Achilles dies, right?
Yeah.
He gets shot multiple times with arrows, and he takes them out. But then when you see him die, you see the arrow in his heel.
Right,
Yeah,
just
that's
like the cherry on top. Like that's what
Yeah.
did him in. It wasn't just like the one
Yeah.
arrow.
Right,
It was
but
just
then
like-
because that's the only arrow that's in
You
him,
see,
the story becomes that.
yeah.
That's what killed Achilles is the
Yeah.
arrow to his Achilles heel.
Yeah. So I mean, I love that, you know, certain takes on that, and that's like capturing the core essence of like the original Iliad and like, you know, adapting it to a more realistic take.
Yeah, pretty
And
much.
Other example for that for me has to be the Marvel movie Civil War. Captain America Civil War.
Oh, so now we're getting onto like another good adaptation,
Yeah.
something that actually outdid the source material, might you
yeah,
say?
I would say it certainly outdid it. I mean, there's obviously good and bad to it. Like for example, with Civil War, it wasn't so polarizing to see like which one was the bad side. Like
In the movies, you mean.
in the movie.
In the movies, they made you feel for both sides. Right? In the comics, it was very much like. I remember in that era for the comics, like I just remember feeling personally that like, oh yeah, Iron Man's a dick.
Yeah, but in the movie, like I said, I loved they captured the core essence of the Civil War, what it's supposed to be, and they kind of improved upon it.
Yeah.
In the movie, there were certain things that needed to be like synchronicity for it to actually play out,
Yeah.
which was just like I mean, you have to have a real big suspension of disbelief. But I loved the motive of the villain. But
Yeah.
for him to actually carry out that plan, like everything had to fall in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, so that part's a little silly. I don't think Civil War is necessarily the best example of it outdoing the source material because
I would say it's outdoing the source material in like the
in
core essence
certain
of
regards.
like actually making you empathize with both sides and making it tough for you to choose
yeah.
Which side?
side, whether it's Captain America's side or Iron Man's side.
I mean, obviously, there's certain budget constraints that you can't
Yeah.
do what they did in the comics because they literally
Obviously,
had
yeah.
all the major superheroes, all
Yeah.
the minor superheroes and villains, everyone just battling it out.
Exactly. I mean, like Civil War could have easily been like a three movie arc, but obviously,
I think that would have killed it though.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
well, in the case
it-
of what the movie's doing, yeah, you're absolutely
no,
right.
yeah.
really hurt it.
the thing is like the way they obviously they also can't do it is because of one budget, one certain characters are out to certain studios.
And also totally
Yeah.
different medium.
Yeah, totally different medium, and so I do believe that like, you know, the Marvel movie Civil War outdoes the source material in capturing the core essence of what the comic was supposed to be in comparison
Right.
to what we actually read. As in, like, you know, once you read the Civil War comics, like, man, Tony's a fucking dickhead. And then
Yeah.
you watch Civil War, like, holy shit, whose side do I choose?
Well, I think just the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general, when compared to the comics, especially now, because I feel like Marvel's comics, they're not as interesting these days, and I'm not the only one. I feel like that's a lot of people. The movies have done a good job of taking the best of the comics and adapting them
Yeah.
to the big screen for a modern audience. Like, for instance, with Cap, they took this idea of the man out of time that was in the Marvel Ultimate comics, where, you know, he's Captain America is still like this guy from World War II era that, like, there's going to be things that don't really line up, like the way he thinks and sees the world. It's not going to line up with the world he's now transplanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they took a lot of influence from Ed Brubaker. Yeah.
I don't know. I know who you're talking about. I don't know how to pronounce it.
His work on Captain America, like, they took a lot of influence from him. So it is great to see that, like, in comparison to, like, you look at now the DC movies.
Bad adaptation.
Bad adaptation because they don't follow that core essence of these characters.
Well,
They
except
just,
for Nolan's Batman trilogy, that was
Batman
good.
killing people.
Oh yeah.
It's
Okay.
like, yeah,
All right, all right.
because like
I'll give that to you.
because like Batman vs Superman, like Batman is just tired, weary. I get it that you're trying to show this older Batman, right?
Okay, but the comics did that with the Dark Knight Returns, and Batman wasn't killing people.
And he wasn't killing people. But then it's like you're gonna make a universe out of this movie, and then you're gonna have Suicide Squad right after this movie. What is the point of the Suicide Squad being there when you have Batman killing all these random thugs, but the villains of Batman are making their fucking Suicide Squad?
Well, it's not even just that. It's the fact that they went about creating this movie universe in such a rushed way.
Yeah.
It's like the Game of Thrones thing. They rushed it, and that's why it suffered. Mm-hmm. They didn't build up and earn it. Mm-hmm. That's why Marvel is succeeding with their movies, their live-action movies, and DC's not.
They're taking time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that we can say is just in general, like, all these things that are being rushed in today's, today's society, just the way they're trying to get through everything because they just want to put it out there because there's so much competition.
Yeah.
Can we agree with that?
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones and Star Wars are two completely different things, but they competed with the writers' attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where the writers went to Star Wars, so they rushed through it. Whereas DC is trying to compete with Marvel.
Mm-hmm. They just want to hurry up and expand.
Yeah, they just want to we need to get it out there. Outside of movies too, like Volcano Bay and Disney. Mm-hmm. How they were competing on which park was going to open first.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's taking its time with Star Wars, or it was Avatar that it was competing with. I don't remember.
So.
Yeah, it was Avatar that Volcano Bay. Like I think they ended up opening up Volcano Bay before Avatar, and Volcano Bay wasn't even done when they opened it. So just again, like going into movies and everything, they're all just competing and rushing to see who's going to get done first, and it's harming them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
And they're all doing it to get more money, but then I feel like that kind of hurts you. You get less money if you put something shoddy out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Like I always bring this up because like certain things, it is a business, and you are expecting a product to come out at a certain time. Like you see that happening within video games all the time too. It's like a lot of people want to put out a video game every year, or a video game franchise every year, in comparison to taking their time with it and putting it out. But then like that costs money, so it's like it's a very double-edged sword of like producing art and just putting something out there.
I agree with that, and they say that no work of art is ever finished. The artist just gets tired of working on it. But in these cases, I would say that the creatives behind these things haven't even gotten to that point where they're finished with it.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like if you're taking the time, whether it's going to take you a little bit more money to perfect it, you're going to see that benefit you in the long run because that money's going to just come back in return.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you have this flop, no one's going to want to watch it. The reviews are going to go out, and no one's going to want to see it. So at that point, you're just harming yourself. So take that time. If you can expand your budget a little bit, do it.
Yeah.
Don't put out, like, garbage. It's the same thing with the art in the gallery. Mm-hmm. The artists charge based off of their time and their energy that's gone into these pieces. So a piece that takes someone an hour versus a piece that takes someone like 3 months, there's going to be a huge like price gap in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really think that they should take more time with these things and adapt them the right way. Like we were just discussing Aladdin. Mm-hmm. It was not adapted properly. Yeah. Not going to spoil it for anybody.
No. Okay, so spoiler warning now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because I haven't seen Aladdin. I looked at the trailer and I didn't care
to see it. I think I got hyped about it because I wanted to see how they adapted it into the live action, because they did a good job with Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
I think. Mm-hmm. But Aladdin was, I don't want to say garbage, but it wasn't where it should have been. Like they tried to change, like I told you guys, the women empowerment part. All for it, but not in a classic like that. It should have stayed what it was.
Yeah,
right.
And especially considering the setting that it is.
Right, and the culture influence. It was very inaccurate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I don't feel like any Disney movies. I mean, well, at least not Aladdin, or the Disney movies I've seen. I don't feel like they've ever been incredibly sexist anyway. So.
Did they have my boy, the tiger?
Raja. They did the CG for Raja was like on point. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. That was the only thing that they did good. But guys, I'm going to cut this short because the truck is coming home.
Oh,
Thanks
right.
for having me. Sorry, gotta go.
Okay. Should we wrap up here?
Yeah. I think that's a
good
perfect
point
way to wrap it up.
I'm just going to throw in Logan because I forgot to mention that before. that took all like those Wolverine end comics and like, you know, Old Man Logan, Wolverine, the end, took all of them, took the best of them.
See, that's another thing we could go into right now, just real quickly, briefly, is like certain X-Men movies were adapted poorly.
The first two were pretty good, and
Yeah.
especially since that was like when superhero movies were first starting to get good.
Yeah.
Because you had X-Men and Spider-Man leading the charge.
And Blade.
Oh yeah, Blade too. Blade did a good job.
Blade
I,
1, Blade 2.
No, I wasn't
Yeah.
saying Blade 2.
Yeah.
Blade. I'm saying Blade TOO.
Yeah,
Also, yeah. It's very hit or miss with a lot of these things. They either get it right or they don't.
I feel like people, whenever they're going to adapt something, read it over
You
multiple times
you gotta
and try
know
to
it.
capture that core essence of what that story, whatever you're trying to adapt into whatever medium, and try to keep that core essence.
So here's where I think they go wrong. There's two ways to handle art. You can let's use this let's use drawing as an analogy.
Yeah.
You can draw what you see, and that would be the movie adapted right. They read the story, what they saw in that story they brought to the main screen in whatever way they can. They adapt it to a different medium. When it goes wrong is when the director, writer, whatever takes this and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna put my own unique spin on it. Like they're literally
like an
intentionally
ego. Yeah.
They're doing an ego thing.
Big example, Devil May Cry
Oh yeah, the reboot, the DMC reboot.
by Ninja Theory, right?
Yeah.
Not Ninja Theory.
And it wasn't a bad game per se. What pissed people off was the way that
the core essence of these characters.
didn't capture the core essence of the series.
Yeah.
It didn't have the soul of Devil May Cry. Also, the developers kind of shit on the fans. They like, I get it. Some of the fans were pretty nasty to them, but it's like they were nasty right back. So it's like
Subversion.
rather than try to win them over, you just now you got both sides spitting in each other's face. So I'll give DMC props for what it did. It was it was by all means a good hack and slash game. It wasn't a good Devil May Cry game. Story was kind of interesting, but it was still just a ripoff of They Live. Is that the name of it? The one with with the glasses and the aliens and shit. But yeah.
Okay, with that being said, remember guys, when you're adapting something to another medium, capture that core essence of what you're trying to adapt.
I think it's hit or miss. I think.
Oh yeah, obviously different people, different.
I'm just talking about the ones I liked and didn't like.
And don't be like D&D and just rush shit. And HBO, I give you fucking fault for that too. You should have hired some writers after them, after D&D.
I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna hate on someone for trying their best and putting out something that isn't as good, because like it's okay. So if D&D had tried their hardest, if they hadn't rushed it, I would have had no problem with it, even if it fell short. Because Martin is just another class of writer.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of writers that can't do what he's doing, and there's nothing. That's fine. That's a very complex world he's building, and look at how long he's been working on it. It's been since the 90s. So it's like not everyone wants to dedicate that much time to it.
Yeah.
But D&D didn't care.
Yeah.
Martin's talked about this in interviews that he was saying, at least 10 seasons, because there's that much material in these books. It is. You could get 10 to 12 seasons out of this and still not cover everything. They wanted 6. It was either 6 or 7 to start with.
Yeah.
Eventually, they compromised and got 8. And you can see, season 7, rushed. Season 8, hella rushed. They were
let's
just,
go. I want to do Star Wars.
it was about the money
Star
for them.
Wars.
It was about the money.
Yeah.
They didn't care about making something good. But anyway, all that said,
We out.
this has been Geek Tank. We hope you enjoyed. Share your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe. Tell us which adaptations you thought were good and which were bad. And we will see you next time.
I was gonna do it.
Damn.
No one else.
No, I was gonna do it. I was gonna say it.
Damn, I hate sharks. Don't sing that song.
No, shut up. I love sharks.
I do not like
he's
sharks.
afraid of
It's like
sharks.
one of my
We had a
favorite-
whole episode on fear.
Of
And,
sharks.
yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I love sharks.
I fucking hate sharks.
Like trying to get I should probably mute this.
Yeah, you should
I'm
probably
sorry.
silence your cell phone.
Yeah. It's like when
Fucking
you go into the movies.
Noob over
I'm sorry.
here.
Was I
Podcasting
told this?
noob
Was
over
I told
here.
This? I'm
It's
sorry.
common century.
This is work. Someone just asked me to put them on the list. Like, this place is bougie enough to have a list.
Oh wow.
A list?
We're special.
Yeah.
what?
We're in the
For
bougie
tonight's
place.
event.
Put me on the list.
Yeah.
Do you need me to like check out with the clipboard? Like you're not on the list.
You can't
just
come
for just for this one person. Like hold on, let me see if you're on the list.
You can't sit with us.
There's literally one name on this list. and
No,
it's
what
like,
we should do is we gotta combine ourselves to make one really big guy. We'll get
Oh
a
my God,
trench
like
coat
in-
and I'll sit on
like
your
in Little
shoulders.
Rascals.
Because like right now I'm bigger right now because I keep working out even though you've been slacking. So I'll be on top that way. Like we'll be all
Brawling.
big and I'll get your height.
You'll be a
you know.
very awkwardly shaped person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's
once
like
you get
that
to like
episode,
the waist area.
Yeah, like the waist will be like it'll be as wide as his shoulders.
Your
and
knees will be my pecs.
Yeah.
No, but that's
They're gonna be
not
like,
the
"What the
point.
fuck is
Like,
going
he's
on
supposed
here?"
to be the head.
Yeah.
Beck's not you.
So we'll have 2 sets of pecs. Sorry, 3 because it'll be
or
my
he'll
pecs, my knees,
or
and your
his
pecs.
knees will be like the upper abs.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. It'll be like that part of your rib that sticks out like right there where they end.
So you just gotta like stick them outwards.
Yeah.
Just so you don't fall off.
Oh my god. So yeah, welcome to Geek Tank, guys.
Oh, is this our intro? This is how we're going in?
No, I think we should do a proper intro, but this will be our blooper reel, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I like that intro better.
That was
Very,
cool.
like, it
yeah.
wasn't like planned and cookie cutter. Do I have to hold this like this? I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta talk into it.
That is so what is the movie? Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, Talladega Nights.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Just put them down.
Dude, I barely remember that movie, and I know I've seen it.
Man, that should be movie night.
We
Here,
should. We
not
should
here,
do
yeah.
Talladega Nights. That's what we should
That
do
would be
next.
great. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I'd be down to watch that.
Yeah.
I remember it being pretty funny. The part I remember most is the kid, like, I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey.
Michael Clark Duncan, man.
Or
R.I.P.
the Baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he passed away.
Baby Manger Jesus. Yeah.
Well, no, I remember now. It completely slipped my mind.
So yeah, intro.
Intro. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Baby shark do 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 do. You were still gonna go.
All right.